This is a video why Chinese ATVs suck. This customer claimed he was riding this crap box and he hit a stump and it died. And my first thought is, great, you hit a stump and it dies. What a great machine. Start off with, here's the ground clearance against my hand. So going over anything like a piece of firewood probably ain't gonna happen. Fresh off the truck when he dropped it off, these two nuts here that hold the back end together were, well, they were about out to here at the end of the threads. And you definitely had a lot of slop in this rear end. This whole assembly here could slide back and forth about an inch, which I'm sure sounded great. Before I even started working on it, I also noticed these two bolts here on both sides are gone. Well, were gone. We fixed that up, fired it up, and it still runs like a turd because we didn't do anything to make it run any better. Sounded like a carburetor problem. So it's got a carburetor similar to this little pile, but a little bit different. But the bottom line is it has a low jet, just like this one, that was found laying in the carburetor bowl. So basically it just dropped out of its housing and was laying around doing absolutely nothing, allowing the engine to run very rich. So we fixed that, fired it up, and it makes it from this here shop lift out to the end of the driveway before it dies. And it sounds very funny, like you just strangled it and choked the living piss right out of it, and that's more or less what was going on. Notice there's no exhaust pipe coming out of this engine. Well, that's because I loosened up the exhaust and made a leak intentionally, and vroom vroom, off she goes. So, not being able to find any Chinese parts locally, I take the exhaust, clamp it in this vise, and I hack it apart to find this lovely apparatus here, all wiggly and busted. Here. Let's see. I should not be able to wiggle this. You see a busted weld right there. This here can be fixed, but let me see if I get the rest of it out of here, show you what was actually going on. Here's the rest of it. Notice we got a nice little dinghy right here and right here, and that coincides with the exhaust part of this whole mess, where the actual exhaust comes out. This tube here, and this isn't very good, but anyway, comes out of that center tube right here. So the way this whole mess goes together inside, if I can pile her up, this thing goes on like that, and it's supposed to be welded fast. See the big giant hole here? We don't have anything going on because it's a Chinese piece of crap. So this metal piece here, I should turn on the light, but I don't know how. Anyway, this metal piece here would get over the output hole and choke it to death. Made the exhaust hiss, kind of like you, kind of like when you shut down a diesel engine and the oil thing's still spinning around and it's got to wind down, something like that on an old farm tractor. Just a weird hiss noise. And also on full throttle, I didn't feel a whole lot of exhaust gas coming out of that thing when I put my hand over it. So the options are replace it with an even cheaper thing off eBay, fix it, which will maybe work, maybe not, or gut it. So I'm going to call its owner and ask him, does he want it loud and fixed permanently, or quieter and fixed temporarily? And that's only half of why these Chinese things suck. Pretty much everything else on them falls apart. The key doesn't even stay in the ignition, so they cut it off. Well, they didn't cut it off. They made this nifty little harness, which plugs in here for a key to turn it on and off, because it's such a piece of crap. The key don't even stay in it while you ride. I wish I had it running at the moment, because this gas cap just falls off sitting here on the lift. You drive around and it just let go out behind my barn here, and it said, great, you can't even keep it on there. So before you go spending, a decent amount of coin on one of these things, I got my Polaris Sportsman for my wife for $900 with something like 340 some hours and like 1,000 miles on it. Might have needed a little help, but throwing a little money at something like that's way better than throwing money at one of these piles, because, well, They ride like a board. You can't really ride them through the trail. They're like right around your grass. And they just all around suck. They shouldn't even be allowed in America. I would buy a Yamaha because Yamaha's parts are cheaper and well, they seem to run. And even when they don't, they're cheaper to fix than a Polaris. So used to be a Polaris guy because they used to be made in America, but last bearing I bought said China. And if I'm going to give a dealer good money, I'm going to buy something a little better than China. So I'll take my Japanese Koyo over that China bearing any day. Anyway, that's just half of what I found in this thing. And that's why you should definitely think twice before you buy one. Sounds good, but they vibrate like hell. Like really, really, really vibrate. They're a really uncomfortable ride, and they just really don't do the sport any justice whatsoever. Not at all. Buy something that has a suspension at least, you know. Something you can ride, something that has more than 4 inches of ground clearance. Something whose engine doesn't vibrate more than a freight train going by. It's almost unrideable to me. Because you can ride a Polaris one-handed and be comfortable. You can ride a Yamaha one-handed or a Honda one-handed and be comfortable. This thing, I would feel like I'm going to die if I tried to go 40 miles an hour on it. So, buyer beware. Have a good one.